about to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions. We'll get away, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out, die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's go, let's be free with me. Be free. Not looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche. We're on the run, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out, die with my own doubts. Be free.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to the latest in our series of online revision sessions for A-Level Economics. Let's go over to the economics team to see who's with us today. That's me, top left. So we've got Henry, bottom left. Isabel is joining us, and John as well, top right. So good afternoon everyone. How are you doing, guys?
We're good.
Very well, thank you.
That's
Fantastic.
good. We have sound as well, which is even better. A tough session this afternoon, international trade. Lots of quite challenging questions, activities. John, do you want to give us a flavour for the kind of things we're going to be doing, how you want the chat window to work, and then when you're all set, we'll make a start.
Yeah. Cheers, Jim. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. Those of you who've been with us before. Welcome to any new people as well. Yes, Jim's right. We've got 30 minutes, about 20 questions or so, looking at lots and lots of different topics relating to international trade. It's going to be tricky at times, not all the way through, but it is going to be tricky, and it's certainly going to be fast-paced. Probably worth you having perhaps pen and paper, write things down if you're not sure about things so you can go back to them. And don't forget, of course, this is being recorded, so you can always watch it afterwards as well if there was something that you want to go over. We have the availability of the chat window to the right of your screen, and we would love you to take part in this quiz. We would love you to actually participate and put your answers in there if you're feeling brave enough. So sometimes it's really simple. It's a multi-choice question, and you can type in A, B, C, or D. Sometimes it requires a word or a short phrase or so on. But the more you interact with us, the more interesting and fun this will be. So I think we're ready to start, Jim. Start with our first easing in. I'm going to ease you in with a really straightforward task. All I need you to do is Tell me which country you think this is. I'm going to give you a series of clues. I'm going to give you 5 clues. I'm going to reveal them one at a time, and let's see who's the first person in the chat to actually tell me the correct country. Normally, somebody tells me a country before we've even started, but that's not happening in the chat window just yet. Let's have our first clue, please, Jim. It isn't Scotland. No, thanks, Jim. Right, it is a member of the EU. That cuts it down straight away, doesn't it? And it also definitely excludes the UK. So we are starting to get some chat entries in. So good. At least we know it's one of those 27 countries, isn't it? Okay, let's have a second clue. Let's see if we get any closer to know which one it is. Now, it has the 17th largest economy in the world. This is according to figures from 2019. Now, that should narrow down a few of them, shouldn't it? It should take off one or two of the big guns. I'm seeing a few Germanys and Frances out there, but I would suspect that they would have a larger economy than 17th in the world. So we're starting to see a few others. Now. Okay, let's have a third clue, please, Jim. I belong to the Eurozone. Right, that really now narrows it down just to those countries who use the euro as their currency. Starting to get a lot more answers coming in now. Netherlands, Norway, Italy. People going with Belgium, Switzerland. Okay, let's go for fourth clue, please, Jim. I have the largest reserves of natural gas. Now, where's natural gas normally stored? Member of the EU, remember? Where do you normally find natural gas? Where's it likely to be? Ollie Blackspot, Argentina. Thank you for that, Ollie. We are sticking to Europe, of course. Belgium, Netherlands. Russia's not in the EU. Switzerland's not in the EU. Last clue for us then, Jim. This really should give it away. The home of the ING group. Aegon or Airbus. Now we're getting some answers in. We're really narrowing down quite a few of them. Netherlands and Ajax. Thank you, Jim. Let's reveal the answer. Big reveal then. It is indeed the Netherlands. Well done to all of you who got that. So, important trading partner, member of the EU, so they're going to be an important trading partner for the UK. Let's move on to some multi-choice questions then, if we can. So now into the proper questions, exam-style questions you might receive. Again, it might be a little bit trickier, these ones, but we'll ease you in a bit more gently. Characteristics of globalization. 4 suggestions for you there. Which of them is correct? Which of these best describes the characteristics of globalization? So globalization, one of those topics I'm sure you will have thought about and covered, talked about outside of economics, obviously, as well. So which of those relates, do you think, to globalization? I think with this one, the key is to eliminate some based upon things that aren't within globalization as a topic. Daniel's put easy A, so let's hope it is A, Daniel, otherwise that'll be a little bit embarrassing. Let's have a look at the answer, Jim. I think this one is quite easy, actually. It is indeed A. So labour migration, global brands and existence of multinational corporations. All the other 3 had elements of protectionism, and we've got a question later on specifically on protectionism there. So if it's got protectionism within it, it doesn't tend to be relating to globalization. Next question for us then, Jim. Okay, into some theory. The theory of comparative advantage. A theory of comparative advantage suggests that countries should do what? Okay, have a think about this one. Diversify, only trade if a country has an absolute advantage in at least one product, seek to become self-sufficient, or only trade if opportunity costs of production differ between countries. Starting to get some answers in now. Fairly common suggestions here. I'm looking through. Jake's gone with D, Ben's gone with D, Matt's D, Hope has gone with D. Boozer says it's a joke question. Less easy, says Daniel, but he's gone with D again. He's confident. Let's have a look at the answer, Jim. Yes, it is D. So some students might have thought it might have been A as well, but of course it's about opportunity costs when we're looking at comparative advantage. Theory of comparative advantage, of course, says diversification is not a great thing, or you shouldn't seek to become self-sufficient. You should try and specialize in those things in which you have a comparative advantage. Thanks, Jim. Let's have the next question. Question 3. So there's several organizations that you need to be aware of when you're thinking about international trade, and this one's about the WTO, the World Trade Organization. Which of these is a major objective of the WTO? The WTO. So let's have a look at some suggestions. At last, we've got a little bit of variation in our answers. We've got B's and C's coming in here. So, provide loans for countries, provide financial help for countries, reduce general level of protectionism, achieve an orderly system of fixed exchange rates. Yes, definitely getting a few different ones. I think primarily we're going with C. Some are going with B. Let's have a look at the answer. Put people out of the misery, Jim. It is actually C. Yes, reduce the general level of protection in the world trade. Again, we've got a few other questions on some of the organizations. So you need to know about the WTO, you need to know about the IMF, which would have been the International Monetary Fund, which would have been the answer for A and D, and the World Bank, which would have given you answer B. Okay, fourth and last multi-choice question for us then, Jim. Free trade agreement between China and Australia means that countries can trade freely but have no common external tariffs. Okay, so that's a really important bit of this question. China and Australia don't have common external tariffs. How do we describe that agreement? What would we say is the description of that agreement? So it's between China and Australia, but is without external tariffs. So external tariffs, where countries have the same custom duties, import quotas, and other sort of protectionist, non-protectionist elements to it, and all of the products coming into those two countries would face the same conditions. Okay, mostly going with C here. Let's have a look. Let's go with it. Thanks, Jim. It is bilateral, not multilateral. Multilateral would be 3 or more, and custom union would require there to be a common external tariff. And of course, the European Union doesn't apply to China and Australia, the Eurovision Song Contest, but not to the European Union. Right, on to our next little activity, and I'll hand it over now to Isabel.
Right, now you've got your brains warmed up. We're going to make it a little bit harder. So next up is the bubble quiz. Now it's a bit like multiple choice, but this time there might not just be one right answer. There might be 2 right answers, there might be 3 right answers, there might be 4 right answers, there might be no right answers. So we'd like you to type into the chat which answers you think are right, okay? And you might need your pen and pencil or your paper for this to jot some bits down. Okie dokie, so let's have a look at the first question. Oh, okay. So the table shows the maximum amounts of wheat and beef that Nigeria and France can produce if they just sell one good. If this is the case, which of the following statements is true? So you might need to do some opportunity cost calculations here. Oh, everyone's just working it out. We've got no answers coming in yet. Who's going to be the first one? Need to be quick on the maths with this one, I think. Little bit trickier here. Okay, so you need to make sure that you're doing your calculations accurately, but also quickly. And we want the letters of the ones that you think are correct, okay? And as I say, it might just be one letter. It might be 5, there won't be 5 letters because there aren't 5 answers. It might be 4 letters, there might be no letters. If you don't think any are right, you can put a 0 into the chat window. Oh, we've got our first answer. We've got a 3, but if you can tell us which ones you think are correct, we've got a B and a D, a C and a D, a C and a D. Oh, we've got all sorts of answers coming in here. We'll just give you a couple more seconds. So we want the letters of the correct ones. Okie dokie, lots and lots of different answers here. And this is a bit of a tricky question. Okay, so let's give you 5 more seconds. Okay, let's see the answers then. Okie dokie, so we've got 3 correct answers, B, C, and D. And the trick here was to get those opportunity cost calculations right. Okay, so in Nigeria, the cost of the first unit of beef production is 2 units of wheat, and we get that by doing our 40 divided by 20. C is correct because if we do 15 divided by 10, we get that 1.5. And then to determine which country has the comparative advantage, we need to look for the one with the lowest opportunity cost in that product. So the lowest opportunity cost of beef, so that is indeed France. Well done. Let's see. Oh, a couple of people got that right in the end. Well done. Let's move on to the next question. So imports into Canada will tend to increase if Is it if Canadian prices rose more slowly than other countries? If their real income fell due to a recession? If import tariffs increase? Or if the external value of the Canadian dollar increase? So again, it could be 0 correct, it could be 4 correct, it could be anything in between. Type the answers in that you think are correct. Oh, we're quick off the mark on this one. We've got a few coming in quickly. Lots of D's, some A's and D's. We've got a B for the first time there. Oh, lots of D's coming in. Okay, let's have a look at the answer then. It was in fact D, and that's because if the external value of the Canadian dollar increased, that means that they'd be able to import more with their money. So their money would go a bit further, so they could import more goods. Lots of people went for A and D. A isn't quite correct because if Canadian prices rose more slowly, then they'd be relatively cheaper. So people would prefer to buy Canadian goods rather than goods from abroad. Handing over, what's next, John?
We have the Can You Crack This Code? Crack the Code activity. Okay, now, I just quickly need to explain to you here. In a minute or two, you're going to give me your suggestion to the answer for this question, and you're going to type out 6 letters, A to F, in a particular order. Now, don't start until I tell you to, because we have an algorithm working through YouTube to tell us when the first person who gets this correct actually identifies it, and that will then reveal the correct answer. So, this is what I'd like you to do. I want you to think about these 6 countries that are on screen, and I want you to put them in an order. So put the UK export market countries in the correct order from highest to lowest in terms of their percentage share of market. So this is based upon 2020 figures. So if, for example, you thought China was the place that we sent most of our exports to, you'd have China first and Netherlands second, for example, so on and so forth. But you're trying to work out the code. The code needs to be 6 letters long. So far we've had a couple of suggestions which are only 5 letters. The algorithm has started, by the way, so we are waiting to see who types in who's the first person to type in the 6 letters correctly. When that happens, we'll have the YouTube will tell us that somebody's got this correct, and the correct answers will appear on screen. Now, what's never happened is we've never had a situation where nobody gets it correct. So we'll have to keep an eye on those, what's coming into the chat to see if anybody gets this correct. Let's see, that's what's coming in. We have lots of possible answers here. Thanks to Louis, thanks to Bikram, Jack, Ben, looking out for the correct answer. Jasmine there, Shreya. Oh, and we have got a winner. We have got a winner. I didn't see who was the first one here. They were flashing past really, really quickly. So apologies, I didn't spot the name of the first person to get that right. But there is that list. It actually starts with the USA. So quite a high proportion of our exports go to the USA before they go to the European Union countries like Germany, France, Netherlands, and Ireland. So a nice little trade deal with the USA would be wonderful, wouldn't it? Brilliant. Thank you for that. Well done for taking part in that. We'll move on. 60-second challenge, and here's Henry.
Hi, everyone. So I'm sure you know that one of the most important things to do in economics is to make sure you have all your definitions accurate, correct, and it shows really good knowledge for your essays and actually your short answer questions as well. So you need it all the way through. What we've got here is what goes up to G. So I think that's 7. That's going to be 7 economic terms, and here we have 7 definitions. Just in the chat, I want you to work out how it matches up. So it might just be A1, B2, C3, D4. It might be as simple as that. But I just want you to go through and put as many as you can. And could we start the clock, please? Still waiting for our first answer to come in. Quite a lot of reading to do here, so. Okay, time's up, and I think we've got a few answers in the chat. So we've got Yusuf, we've got Ben, we've got Boozer, and we've got Louis, Jasmine. So a few people managing to get all of an answer to every single one. Could we get the next slide to reveal the answers, please? So first answer was A5, multinational companies, kind of given in the name, multinational, many nations. So if it's a firm with facilities and assets in more than one country, that's going to be a multinational company. Absolute advantage, where you can produce a product using fewer resources than another nation. Always have to be careful not to confuse that with comparative advantage, which we went through a little bit earlier. Specialization, so countries like Bangladesh, for example, specialized in creating one product, where countries are concentrated in creating one product. Terms of trade, real value of exports in terms of their imports. Free trade area, it's where there are no tariffs or taxes. So this is going to be an area which you're going to be able to have nations freely trading with each other. There's not going to be very much protectionism in that kind of area. Current account. So current account measures the difference between money and credit going in and out of a country, in and out of an economy. So we've got our things like our trades and goods and services, our primary income, such as our interest, our profits, and our secondary income like aid. And finally, we have our infant industries, which might require government protection from overseas competition because they're relatively small. Well done to all of you who got loads right. Lots of correct answers. Awesome. All right, let's move on to the next slide, please. So again, this is one where you are going to use a grid. So if you look across the top, you see A, B, and C. So yeah, import licensing, for example, would be A1, embargoes would be A2, and export subsidies would be A3. In here, there is going to be a number of terms which relate to protectionism. So protectionism being any attempt by a government to impose restrictions on free and open trade. What I want you to do is put down in the meeting chat every single one that you think can be related to the idea of protectionism. So in the chat, put down all the terms you think are protectionist, which are protectionist policies which protect your own industries. Got an answer from Esther, we've got Connor. Keep thinking and have a think, which ones don't we know? Got a 5 here. So if I tell you how many there are going to be 7. 7 of these 9 are going to be protectionist policies. So let's see how many we can get. So for those of you who have only got 3, 4, see if you can work out if there's any more which might be related to the idea of protectionism. So getting a lot of people for 1A, C1. Great, we've got a lot of answers here. All bar privatization and deregulation, very good, Lou. I've just gone for that one because it was the easiest one. Can we get the answers, please? Fantastic. So absolutely right. It's everything here other than privatization and deregulation. Things like administrative barriers. So it's good to know what kinds of things are examples of this. So administrative barriers would include things like bureaucratic form filling, foreign health and safety standards having to be met in the UK. That would be a protectionist policy there. Export subsidies would be subsidies given by the government to make UK goods more competitive internationally. So those of you who forgot about that, that would be something you might want to brush up a little bit on. Import licensing, requiring importers to have a license. Competitive devaluation, making your own currency cheaper. And actually, deregulation is more likely to have the opposite effect because you're going to be putting fewer standards and regulations on foreign imported goods. So spot on, well done to those of you who got all 7. I think I'm handing back to Isabel now.
Hello. Okay, so next up is the 2-statement challenge. There are 2 statements. You have to work out if they are true or false, and then you have to work out which option is going to give you the right combination. So here you've got 2 challenges. You've got to know what's true and false, and then you've got to make sure you actually pick the right option. It's very, very easy to know what you're doing and then pick the wrong option by mistake. So just the letter at the bottom, A, B, C, or D. Customs Union comprises of a group of countries that agree to abolish tariffs and quotas between member nations to encourage free movement of goods and services. Or a customs union comprises of a group of countries that agree to adopt common external tariffs. Lots of A's coming in, a couple of C's, James. We've got Connor on a B, we've got Lewis on a C. We've got Yusra, we've got Chloe, we've got Joshua all going for A's. It might be that none of them are true. It might be that both of them are true. Or we could have one of each. Or a couple more C's coming in here. Duncan's gone for A. Esther's gone for C. Okay, let's have a look at the answer then. It was indeed A, so well done to Chloe and Joshua and Duncan. Indeed, for a customs union, both of those things need to be true. It needs to be both it needs to have no tariffs or quotas, but it also needs to have that common external tariff in order to be a customs union. Okay, let's have a look at the next one then. Are they true or false? All about the WTO. Similar to a question that came up earlier, were you listening really carefully to the hints and tips you got there? Does the WTO help to lower import tariffs, or does it oversee the world's monetary stability? Does it do both? Does it do neither? Lots of B's coming in here. Booz has gone for BBB. Jasmine's gone for B. Oz has gone for B. Hope's gone for B. The WTO, that's the World Trade Organization. We've just got a new president. Lots of B's coming in here. Very, very confident on this one. Let's have a look at the answer. It is indeed B, because statement 2 is untrue. That's more the job of the IMF there. Very, very good. Very impressed with that. Moving on. We've got categorize. Right, you're only going to have 60 seconds to do this. I'll tell you when to start. Don't start yet. So down the left, you've got, down the right. Down the right, you've got advantages of floating exchange rates and advantages of fixed exchange rate. Your job is to sort them into the right categories. Now, what we'll do is we'll go with, once you've worked it out, can you type the numbers of the advantages of floating exchange rates? And then we'll just assume that the other's going to fixed. So when the clock starts, you're going to need to start typing in the advantages of floating exchange rates. Okay, let's start the clock then. Everyone's thinking hard. Very good. Okay, we've got our first answer of 2. Oh, I wish this music would follow me around when I've got important decisions to make. We've got a 2 and a 7, a 2 and a 5, and a 7 and an 8. We've got all sorts of combinations coming in so far. We don't seem to have anybody agreeing yet. So we're looking for those advantages of floating exchange rates. So which ones would go in the column on the left? Okay, very, very good. That was very difficult to do in the time. So if we have a look at those answers. So we've got 1, 2, 4, 6, and 7 all relating to advantages of floating exchange rates. If you found that one a bit tricky, I think there's actually a tutor video on this. It's about 6 minutes long, so you can maybe have a look over that and then come back and test yourself again. So moving on then, I think we've got Henry next, is it?
Hi, yeah, it is me, and we're going to be doing some diagram practice now. So looking at these diagrams here, we have a diagram of 2 economies PPS for 2 goods, good X and good Y. In the chat, I want you to answer the question. The diagram below illustrates PPS for 2 countries who are free to trade. What's the opportunity cost in each country of producing 100 units of product X? So just put it in the YouTube chat, please. So thinking, how many products of good Y am I giving up by producing 100 units of product X? Okay, we're getting some answers rolling in now. See if there's anyone who's disagreeing. We've got an overwhelming flood of Ds. And what's the answer? D is in fact correct. So the key to this was reading off the graphs and saying, how many goods of good Y am I giving up? Given that both economies produce a maximum of 400 goods of good Y, if you're at economy 2, you're giving up 200 units of good Y because you only produce 200 units of good Y when you are producing 100 units of good X. Whereas in economy 1, you can create 100 units of good X and 300 units of good Y, thus giving up 100 units of good Y. Opportunity cost, of course, being the benefits forgone of the next best alternative. Next question, please. So the diagram below again shows the PPS for 2 countries producing 2 goods, now tables and sofas. From the diagram, what can be concluded? Making sure that we are clear on the differences between comparative advantage, absolute advantage. Got a C, got an A, got a B. Oh, lots of different answers there. Nice, we've got all 4. Let's see what the consensus ends up saying. Right, we seem to be moving towards C and D, and we've got an answer of 100% D. A lot of confidence here. We're just going to see where it ends up. Are we going to move towards one? Probably slightly moving towards C now, but we're now getting a bit of resonance to B. What's the answer? So the answer is in fact C. The answer isn't D because remember what the definition of absolute advantage is. Absolute advantage is where one country has a lower cost of producing one good than another. So its entire PPF would be completely out. France and Germany, so while France can produce more tables than Germany as a maximum of 2,000 compared to 1,500, they only produce 1,500 sofas each. So they're actually neither has an advantage over the other in absolute terms in producing sofas. Whereas when it comes to comparative advantage, the definition of comparative advantage is where one country has a lower opportunity cost of producing one good than another. So you need to think, if you're creating sofas, how many tables are you giving up? Well, to create sofas, 1,500 sofas, France gives up 2,000, Germany gives up 1,500. So Germany has a comparative advantage in sofas. Well done to all of you who got C. Can we get the next question, please? And now we've got a tariff diagram, probably one of the trickier diagrams that we get in international trade, but with reference to the tariff diagram below, identify the change in quantity supplied, be careful, by domestic firms when a tariff is imposed. So how many would UK firms impose if we were to put a tariff on world products? Answers in the chat, please. Good, getting loads of answers for B. Let's see what the answer is. Answer is in fact B. So the way you do this is you read up the supply curve up until the point that it hits the flat world supply curve. So you start by going up, and then initially you are at P1Q1 in terms of how many domestic producers supply. And then once you increase the tariff, that makes it more expensive for the foreign competitors. As a result, domestic suppliers are going to increase their supply up to Q2 when we have this new price of P2. So well done to all of you who got B. And I believe I am passing on.
Thanks, Henry. Okay, people, we're down to our last couple of questions or so. We're just going to have a couple of red herring questions. So red herrings, if we can just move on to the actual first question, Jim. With red herring, I'm going to give you 4 suggestions. I'm not giving you a question. I just need you to spot which one is the odd one out. Which of those 4 is the odd one out? What I'd like to see is you tell me which one is the odd one out, but also tell me why. Why is that one the odd one out? What do the other three have in common? So that's what we're trying to do with this red herring. We're trying to spot the red herring. We're trying to work out which one doesn't apply and what is the commonality, what is the thing that connects the other three. So let's see what suggestions we've got. So A is higher transport costs, B, specialization can reduce cost, C is currency exchanges can carry costs, and D, need to comply with foreign legal requirements. What are we going to go with? Now, people are giving me some suggestions about which is the incorrect answer or which is the red herring, but why? What is it that we're trying to connect the other three with? So let's have a look. Will is telling me something about an avocado. Thank you, Will. Daniel's gone with D. He thinks it's need to comply with foreign legal requirements. Still hasn't told me why. So now we get some suggestions. Shreya has gone with D because it doesn't talk about cost. I think that's true, but I don't know whether that's actually the reason for the combination of the others. So don't necessarily think about the costs so much on this one. Don't think about the fact that some have got costs and some haven't. How might they be related? Okay, Jasmine says B, specialization, because the rest often have increased costs. Okay, thank you. That's a good suggestion. Hope also says the same for B, could lead to a reduction in costs. More and more going for B now. So let's have a look at the correct answer here, Jim. Thank you. It is indeed B. So all the other three are actually disadvantages of international trade. Whereas if we follow the comparative advantage theory and we specialize, actually we can start to benefit from economies of scale through that specialization. Lovely to bring in some micro into our macro stuff here, by the way. Always good for examiners to see a mixture of micro and macro theory in any answer. Brilliant. Let's have our second red herring question then. Here's our second one. Which of these four is the red herring? Which of these four is the odd one out? And what connects the other three? Please don't tell me it's D because it's the only one that doesn't have the word investment in. That's not the answer. So what is the correct answer? So which is the odd one out, the red herring? And what connects the other three? So what are we getting here? What suggestions have we got this time? So we've got portfolio investment, foreign direct investment, capital investment, and hot money. Which of those is the odd one out? Hope has said it's capital investment because it's not in the financial account. That's actually not a bad suggestion. Charles has said D since it doesn't make up part of the balance of payments. So similar suggestion there. Oz has gone with B because it doesn't relate to interest rates. I'm going to tell you, it's not the correct answer, but that's a good suggestion and has some merit, that one. We're going, few of you going with the idea that it's not relating to balance of payments and not relating to current accounts. Is it okay? What are the suggestions? Any other suggestions before we have a look at the answers? Sega has gone with C because it's not part of aggregate demand. Thank you. Let's have a look at the correct answer, please, Jim. It is indeed C, capital investment. So capital investment is that spending on capital goods, such as factories and machinery and so forth, where the others are all types of international investments. So doing some international trade stuff here. So the other three, portfolio, foreign direct, and hot money are all examples of international investments. We're down to our last question. So if we just move on to our last slide, please, Jim, we're going to have a quick go at a bit of higher or lower. So this is our last question. And in this one, we're going to discuss the Big Mac Index, the Big Mac Index. Now, if you've not seen the Big Mac Index before, it's a little bit of a joke index created by The Economist magazine, aiming to show the theory of purchasing power parity. So are currencies equal or not, or how do baskets of goods differ in terms of their price between one country and another? And to do that, they compare the price of a Big Mac. So the Big Mac is the same no matter what country you go with, and also it's available in almost every single country in the world. So that's why they use the Big Mac as the denominator, as it were, for the Big Mac Index. So the Big Mac Index for the UK is what? Let's have a look at that. Let's have a look at the first one for the UK. It is $4.44. So using the Big Mac Index, the price of a Big Mac in the UK is $4.44. The question for you is, do you think the price of a Big Mac in the USA would be higher or lower than the UK? So let's start to see some suggestions from you then. Is it going to be higher than $4.44 or lower than $4.44? Immediately, a flood of answers coming in. Almost everybody's going with, I say almost everybody, everybody's going with lower. We've started to get Jasmine and Louis have gone with higher. So you're having to think about USA, you're thinking perhaps the Big Mac comes from the USA, so perhaps it would be a lower price. Most going with lower, some going with higher. Let's have a look though, Jim. It is indeed higher. So using the Big Mac index as a relative price, using currency alterations, the Big Mac would actually cost you more in the USA than it would in the UK. Right, next country is Russia. Is the price of a Big Mac in Russia likely to be higher or lower than the USA? So we're going with the previous country. We're not going back to the UK now. Do you think the price would be higher or lower in the USA compared to in Russia? Sorry, compared to the USA. What do we think? Lots and lots of lower. Lots going with lower. Making some decisions based upon what you know about the economy of Russia, perhaps about the exchange rate of the Russian currency compared to the American dollar. Let's have a look, Jim. It is indeed lower, quite a bit lower. So the relative cost of a Big Mac in Russia is $1.81. Right, what's our next country? It is China. Okay, perhaps a little bit more tricky for you this time. Have a think. Do you think it would be higher or lower? The price of a Big Mac relative to Russia, would it be higher or lower in China? What do we know about the Chinese economy? Most people going with higher. Connor thinks that there are no Big Macs in China. I'm pretty sure that there are. I'm pretty sure you can buy a Big Mac in various cities around China. Talked about globalization back in the first question. Many going with higher. Well, actually, I think we've got quite a mixture of people going with higher or lower. Let's have a look, Jim. With China, it is indeed quite a bit higher, actually, closer to the UK. So $3.46. Last country to look at. South Africa. So what do we think about South Africa and the relative price of a Big Mac compared to China? What do we think is the relative price? Louis got 3 out of 3 so far, which is brilliant. Can you get 4 out of 4, Louis? Actually, Louis, let's see your answer. I need to see your answer to check whether you get 4 out of 4. James has gone with lower. Ours has gone with higher. Bikram lower. Cyril Dubs has gone with lower. Just waiting to see whether Louis is going to set an answer in before we reveal it. Louis gone with higher. Let's have a look at the answer then, Jim. It is lower. Oh, Louis right at the end there, just missing out on getting 4 out of 4. But there you go. That's our final question. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for taking part in these quizzes. Back to the economics green room. Thanks to everybody who took part in that quiz. Thanks for some of those answers. There were some really tricky ones in there, and you were required to answer them with very little time. So absolutely superb from many people. So thank you for that. Just a quick reminder, this video has been recorded, so you can always watch it afterwards if you want to, or refer it to other people if they want to know what took place. Don't forget to subscribe to the TutorDU YouTube channel. You will get little reminders about the other upcoming Revision Blast quizzes, whether they're for economics or any of our other subjects. Yeah,
I think just looking at the schedule, Johnny, I'm seeing it's market failure, isn't it? Is that the next one?
That's right, on Thursday, 2 o'clock again on Thursday. So we'd love to see people back for that as well. But I think we are finished there.
Yeah.
Lovely to see everybody.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
See you, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Well done. Bye.
Bye-bye.